Hello, and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today, I'll be showing you how to cycle from Islington in North London to Tottenham. This ride takes about 35 minutes, and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. By public transport, the same journey takes between 45 minutes and an hour and requires a change of line, so it's really convenient to do this one on your bike. If you find this video useful, or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new videos just like it every week. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to everybody who supports the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute as well, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting on Upper Street and we're going to duck straight into Berners Road. Berners Road is a cul-de-sac that doesn't really go anywhere, so you won't find any traffic on here. The same goes for Bromfield Street, which has long been closed off by those bollards we just passed through to stop motorists from cutting through from Liverpool Road through to Upper Street. After that, we're going to turn on to Liverpool Road itself, which has these lightly protected cycle lanes on it. The lanes are protected from general traffic by these metal wands and also by these floating parking spaces. The effect is quite good, but you do have to watch out for doors like the one on that Mini there. If you look closely, you'll see there's actually a buffer space between the parking spaces and the lane, and I'm surprised at how reasonably well it is actually observed by people parking. I think I'm right in saying that the doors on Minis are particularly long and it didn't block the lane and we were able to get past even when it was fully open. One of the downsides of the cycle lanes on this street is that they actually give up for a bit when you get to this parade of shops here. You can see that the cycle lane is really just a load of paint on the road, and it also goes on the other side of the parking, unlike in the bit we just went through. There is actually a way to avoid this stretch if you're particularly worried about it. You can turn off left at Richmond Avenue and rejoin the protected lane just here at Barnsbury Street. But it is a bit of a detour, and I thought I would go this way just to show you what it's like on the main road. It really is only for a few seconds, so you can make up your mind and decide which way you want to go. My understanding is that Islington is planning to do a permanent scheme to build these lanes properly, because they're currently done with temporary materials, and when that's done I would hope that they would put proper cycle lanes through that stretch as well. Now keep an eye on this white car here and also the woman cycling in front of us. That neatly illustrates another risk that you need to be aware of, which is left hooks by dangerous drivers. Now fortunately there is already something in the pipeline which should help mitigate the risk of that down these lanes, and that is Islington Council's plans to put a low traffic neighbourhood on either side of this street. The plan is to remove through traffic from the side streets either side of Liverpool Road as part of the Barnsbury and Laycock livable neighbourhood scheme, and when that happens that will reduce the number of people using them as a rat run, and therefore the number of people also turning into them, and hopefully the number of people doing stupid stuff like that. Separately, that scheme should also open up some really good east-west cycle routes with very little traffic on them, which I'll obviously be showing you on this channel when it goes live, probably sometime next year. Do make sure that you hit subscribe now so you don't miss that. The crossing that we're using now over Holloway Road is a really nice, safe way to get over a busy street. And when the low traffic neighbourhood I was talking about just now goes in on the other side of Holloway Road, that crossing will be a really useful link between the quiet streets on that side of the road and the quiet streets on this side of the road which we're cycling in now. This is actually part of the Highbury low traffic neighbourhood, and there's very little traffic on the roads here because through traffic has effectively been removed by a series of strategic road closures. Now normally here I would be cycling in the protected cycle lanes on both sides of the road, but unfortunately that section around the roundabout was actually closed for work, so I had to dart around it and join the lane a little bit later here. But actually it doesn't really matter too much because this whole area, as I said, is part of the Highbury LTN, and that means that the streets themselves actually don't have too much traffic on them. That's just as well as the protected lane is not always there for you in both directions. It goes pretty far in the direction we're travelling, but when you're going in the opposite direction, Actually, you do have to cycle on the carriageway some of the time, and fortunately there isn't too much traffic, so it's not really a problem. I've said this before on this channel, but it does sort of feel like overkill to have both protected cycle lanes and traffic filters on the same road. Normally you would put protected cycle lanes down the main road and then have the back streets free of through traffic with a sort of a low traffic neighbourhood treatment with traffic filters, etc. I believe that the reason there are both here is because the construction of the lanes was planned a few years before the COVID-19 pandemic, and then during the pandemic Islington really stepped up its approach to active travel and started putting in a lot more low traffic neighbourhoods and getting much more ambitious with removing traffic from streets. So as a result you've got both, and it's not the end of the world, you can't complain really. If you need a little bit of help with wayfinding in this section, then keep an eye out for that green and blue sign that was on the left there pointing to C38 cycleway 38, which is the route that we're following just for the next few minutes. As you can see, there are bollards here, there were no entry signs for motor traffic, and that means that we are still in this low traffic neighbourhood here, and there's no through traffic on the streets at all. It's a really, really pleasant ride. Just a reminder that if you do need a bit more help with finding your way in these videos, and they can be quite twisty and turny, especially when I make use of back streets, you can always download a map of the route in a link in the description below the video. It comes in a GPS file and you can use it on whatever app or device that you choose to use. I just thought I'd mention it because when I don't mention it in videos I always get people asking me, so I feel like it's a useful reminder. Now, coming up on Finsbury Park Road here is one of my nemeses, and that is the Thames Water Works, which have closed this road for genuinely years now. I don't know whether they've disappeared yet. I did shoot this video a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, and that construction site was still there when I came here. Fortunately, it has shrunk a little bit since the last year or so, and you can now cycle past it without dismounting, at least last time I looked. So it's significantly less annoying than it was. By the way, when you're doing this route in the opposite direction, there is actually a cycle crossing leading from the pavement outside Finsbury Park here into Finsbury Park Road. You have to press a button and you get a green light and it stops traffic for you, so you can cross Seven Sisters Road safely, which is really nice. Now, we're in Finsbury Park, and during the day this is a really lovely place to cycle. You've got a big wide road with zero traffic on it. It's not even really a road, it's just a massive path, and yeah, there's plenty of space for everyone and it's really good fun. The park is open 24 hours a day, so you can come through here at night, but I would say look around and you can't probably see any street lighting, so it is quite dark in here at night. So if that bothers you, then maybe you might want to detour around here. Unfortunately, the main road alternatives are not great. You'd have to go on Seven Sisters Road and then turn off left down green lanes to meet us on the route. Personally, wouldn't enjoy that, and personally probably would prefer to go through here if I was riding in the dark. But if you do consider doing it, then obviously consider your own personal safety, personal needs. Different people have different thresholds for this sort of thing, and also make sure you get a good set of lights so you can see where you're going. Now, normally the path would continue like this till the end of the park, but unfortunately there was actually an event in the park which closed off a large part of it, so I had to dismount here and walk my bike on this temporary trackway, which was far from ideal. I think the event is Wireless Festival, which is a large music festival held in the park every year. The question of events in parks in London is actually quite a fraught one, and it's become quite controversial in recent years. Different people have different views on it. Some people think that it's annoying that public space gets closed off and sort of used for profit. Other people enjoy the events. I think I'd probably sit somewhere between the two. I do like living in a city where millions of people a year visit and living near big cultural attractions. On the other hand, I can see why people get upset if their local park is closed for a significant part of the summer, especially if they have no interest in the event being held. Now, we are back on the road briefly, and we are using these semi-protected cycle lanes down green lanes. There is a signalised crossing here. You can see the cycle path leads to it. We're not really supposed to cycle over the crossing itself. That's just to give you a safe crossing into Hermitage Road like we've done here. Hermitage Road has the potential to be an excellent cycle route. It's currently alright, and it certainly is the best way for us to get where we need to go. It's pretty direct, and this half of the street that we're currently on has a traffic filter on it, so there is no through traffic on here, and generally it's really pleasant to ride. When you get to the other side of the traffic filter, it can get a little bit busier. It's not awful, but I think there is potential here to install a sort of low traffic neighbourhood thing with maybe some extra filters to remove the last bit of through traffic from the streets around here. Also, the filter itself isn't fantastic. You can see that you sort of have to weave to the side of it. It would be better to redesign that, maybe put a bit of greenery in, because there's not a lot on the street. It's mostly relegated to the gardens. You can make that a really nice focal point of the road. Hermitage Road is near the Haringey warehouse district, which has a kind of an industrial history. Interestingly, around here, just around the corner, the factory for the company Maynards was here. That's the sweets company, and they made wine gums here from 1905, and they only ceased operations in 1998. So there's a good chance that you may have eaten a wine gum that came from around here. There's a junction coming up that you should probably be aware of. It has a little mini roundabout on it, and these are no fun for cycling, so just be careful as you cross it. I think it would make sense to replace that mini roundabout with a conventional junction. There are recent examples of that been done in both Islington and Hackney boroughs, so that design could more or less be copied for that route there, I think, and it would be a cheap way of improving the safety of this cycle route. Now, we've actually crossed into another low traffic neighbourhood here, and that's the St Anne's low traffic neighbourhood that was installed by Haringey Council around a year ago. The streets are really quiet and you won't run into any traffic. One thing I would say is that you could turn right here down Cornwall Road and go that way instead of the route which I'm taking. I think it's probably a little bit more direct. I reviewed the way I went afterwards, and I'm not sure why I didn't go down that way. As it is, we're actually doubling back on ourselves a little bit to get to where we want to go. But you could go Cornwall Road and then onto Station Crescent, and it would probably be a little bit less windy than the route that I've chosen here. If you do go that alternative route, then Station Crescent actually joins Clinton Road, which we're currently on, just on the right here in a second, past these houses. You can just see it here. Next, we have to cross West Green Road, and I think there's a good opportunity to improve the crossing here. If you look on the left, there's a foot zebra crossing there. If that was shifted just to the mouth of Clinton Road and turned into a sort of a joint pedestrian and cycle crossing, then it would be really a helpful way of getting from that St Anne's low traffic neighbourhood onto the cycle path in Downhills Park, which we're on now, and it would create a more coherent cycle route. Talking of Downhills Park, by the way, make sure you pick the right entrance when you enter the park. There are actually two entrances, and we picked the leftmost one rather than the one that's a bit further to the right. The one on the left leads to this shared cycle path, and the one on the right goes into some ornamental gardens which you're not really supposed to cycle in. Of course, this path is shared with pedestrians, so don't ride too quickly, and make sure you give everybody plenty of space, and just generally be courteous to people on foot, as you are supposed to share the space with them as well. Unlike Finsbury Park, this park does actually have street lighting, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue to cycle through, and it is open at night as well. There are no gates on that section, so you can cycle through it, no problem. We're now leaving the park, and we are again on the carriageway. This is actually another low traffic neighbourhood that we're in. This is another one installed by Haringey, and it's the Bruce Grove West Green low traffic neighbourhood, and it is massive. It's a huge intervention by the council to effectively remove through traffic from a really large area around Bruce Grove to the south of Tottenham. When this scheme, which is currently in the trial phase, first went in around a year ago now, I remember it was pretty chaotic. There was a lot of non-compliance by people driving, so there were a lot of people driving through the camera enforced filters, and it didn't feel that low traffic, but it's really bedded in as a scheme now. I think every time I come back here, the streets feel significantly quieter, and it's a lot easier to cycle through the area. There was a lot of shouting and opposition to it at first, but that also seems to have died off. I haven't really heard much from people critical of the scheme, perhaps as people have started to recognise a lot of the advantages of it. It's certainly useful for us in that it opens up this almost entirely traffic-free cycle route, but I think it also makes it just generally a more pleasant place, and you can see a lot of people walking around in a pretty carefree way, not blighted by motor traffic going past them. Just a reminder that if you're enjoying what you are seeing here, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube so you're alerted to get new videos. For those of you who don't know, subscribing is completely free, and all it does is push the videos to your homepage, which I'd like to happen because I'd like you to see more of them. If you'd like to support the channel in other ways, you could also just hit the like button, as that does help more people find the video. It kind of boosts it in YouTube's algorithm. And also leave a comment letting me know what you think of the route, or maybe other routes that you'd like to see me try and figure out. And of course, thank you so much again to everyone who supports the channel on the Patreon page. I really appreciate your contribution, and it does help me stay disciplined and make sure I do a video more or less every week, as I don't want to let you down because there are people putting money behind it, so there's that as well. Right, now we need to cross Lordship Lane here, and although there's not a proper crossing, there is this little protective island which I find pretty useful. It works pretty well, gives you a little protected space to wait as you cross into Church Lane. It means you can go across Lordship Lane one lane at a time. It's not ideal, and to be honest, they should really put a proper crossing there, especially given that this is an official cycle route. We're on Cycle Superhighway 1. Now, make sure you keep an eye out for cars like that one going around the corner there. Although this road looks like it should be a relatively quiet one, it's between two parks and also a churchyard. Generally, I find that there is quite a lot of speeding going on down here. A lot of cars take that corner very quickly, especially on the wider section of the road. Really, it would make sense for Haringey to put a filter here and to prevent through traffic. It doesn't really make sense to have this open as a through route, I think. Haringey has done some decent stuff in the last few years. Their cabinet member for transport is, I think, really excellent. And they have stuck their neck out a lot with those new low traffic neighbourhoods, two of which we actually passed through today. But it would be great to see them keep the momentum up, maybe talk about which LTNs they'll be doing next. And also, I think really crucially, they need to do some proper main road cycle routes, like on green lanes. That's a really key missing link that a lot of people use, and currently there's no infrastructure there and it's horrible to ride down. So hopefully they'll be doing something like that in the next few months. In the meantime, we're here. We've arrived at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That's right in front of us here. And if you take a look at the map, it's actually a pretty direct route we've done here. It's decent, and as you've seen, it's all relatively low traffic or on protected cycle lanes most of the way. There's a couple of sections that, it's a bit twisty and turny, it might be hard to remember, but overall, I think we can probably say that going from Islington to Tottenham by bike is a really, really great option now, in a way that it probably wouldn't have been a couple of years ago before Haringey brought in those low traffic neighbourhoods, which have really connected up large parts of the borough. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure you let me know in the comments what you think of that. Make sure you hammer that like button so other people can find the video. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks again to everyone on the Patreon. I appreciate your patronage. If anyone else fancies chucking the channel a couple of quid a month, then there is a link in the description below the video. You can also find a link to the map of the route down there, which is of course free. And I will see you guys all again next time.